Good morning, and we'll call to order the meeting of the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada. Mr. Snow.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Your agenda is in order. Ready to be approved.
Entertain a motion? Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Your second item is to receive the General Manager's report. And first off, if I can pick this up without tearing a rotator cuff, I'm pleased to report to the Commission that the other night at the State of the City of Las Vegas, from the message from Mayor Goodman, we were honored, the Regional Transportation Commission was honored to receive the 2010 Las Vegas Mayor's Urban Design Award at the Mayor's State of the City address. And unlike other maybe less expensive and less artistic plaques that the mayor has received over the course of his tenure, he makes sure that the awards that he gives out are substantial. And we have a very artistic award here that was done by a local artist. The last name is Domsky, done this year, and this is to the RTC for the Mayor's Urban Design Award for the Bonneville Transit Center and the Stop and Glow bus shelters, which are the shelters and platforms with the artwork that we have for the Strip and Downtown Express that goes through downtown. We are very privileged and honored to receive this award. Thank you so much to Mayor Oscar Goodman and the City of Las Vegas. We really appreciate this recognition, and we appreciate the workout too when we have to pick it up, because it is very heavy, very nice.
Okay, well, you were right in thanking me. Forget about the City of Las Vegas.
Maybe you could put it out on the counter so people in the public can see it.
I'd be happy to.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Councilman Ross.
I'd just like to point out too, Jacob, that all of that material was found in the mayor's shed in his backyard and recycled. So just want to point that out too. So it was all the mayor.
I hope we never have to reintroduce this material as evidence in a court case. So we were delighted to receive that honor, and it was a great presentation and show that you put on the other night. Thank you, Mayor. We'd like to begin with a slide here. I was at home on December 27th, and I got a phone call from Mayor Roger Tobler, the mayor of Boulder City, and I have known Mayor Tobler for as long as I've known anybody, and I could tell he was angry when he called. He didn't yell, he didn't scream, he didn't shout, but I knew that he was angry, and he was very concerned about the traffic that has been plaguing Boulder City, especially on weekends and especially in daytime hours, now that the trucks have returned to that route since the opening of the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge. And that week, I myself had tried to make 2 trips to Boulder City to go out and visit my mother, and every time I got on the I-515 freeway, when I got to College Drive, I could see that there was a significant backup, and I had to get off and just go home. I wasn't willing to, I didn't have that much time to spend stuck in traffic, and so I was not able to make those trips. And of course, I was able to relate to the frustration that the mayor had because people just could not get out of Boulder City, and then when they finally endured the traffic, they couldn't get back in. And he was very, very concerned, and so we went out and we discussed what we could do, and the next day the mayor decided to hold a press conference, and we have a, I don't know if this is a very significant issue, and we had an awful lot of press coverage that day. This is just one of the excerpts from the press coverage that we had on this issue. If we can go ahead and play that now, please.
Well, Gary, 1,000 more cars and trucks travel US 93 between Railroad Pass and the Hacienda Hotel, which you can see behind me. It's not quite rush hour, but they say it's going to get busy. This 13 miles is backing up every single day, and the mayor says it is hurting local businesses.
It's backed up clear to Henderson right now. Who wants to now pull off of a backed up system to have to pull back into it and lose your place in that line? I don't think any of the businesses along Nevada Way have increased from this unless there's some fast foods or something like that.
We can go to that next slide, please. One of the things that the mayor asked us to do was to use the services of the dynamic message signs that we have. This is a sign that you'll see that's displayed now. This is just coming up Interstate 515 right before Railroad Pass. And when we are experiencing days and times of the day when there is very, very heavy congestion down through Boulder City at the bypass bridge, we will display this message so that we can encourage people to take an alternate route. And this says use alternate route US 95, which is the road that turns off before Boulder City and goes down to Searchlight, and then you can get on a different road to go over through Laughlin and Bullhead City up into Arizona. And so we've done that. This is just a picture of some of the traffic backups at Railroad Pass that were taken on the day that the mayor called me. And it does back up both ways, although here you see a picture down close to the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge, and we wanted to point out all the trucks that you can see in this picture. There are now 1,200 trucks that have returned to this route since the bypass bridge has reopened. I think, as all of us know, having experience driving with trucks before in the mix of traffic, that when you come to a complete stop at a stop sign or a traffic signal, that trucks accelerate much more slowly than other passenger vehicles do. And when tight turns are involved and steep grades are involved, trucks operate completely differently than other types of automobile traffic. So even though we have a sizable number of trucks that have returned to this route, just that mix of 1,200 trucks per day in combination with the traffic signals, the stops, the creeping traffic, and the tight turns and the steep grades, it might as well be several thousand trucks per day when you have that type of operating environment. And granted, there are a number of factors that are contributing to this problem, holiday traffic being one factor, but of course, ever since the bridge has opened, every weekend, and especially holiday weekends, have seen this problem be a continual, recurring problem. And our mission here is to improve and provide a safe travel experience for both residents and visitors, and so we are concerned about this problem. The public can monitor in real time the traffic situation that occurs out in this part of our transportation system. The area that you see in red here, this is a screenshot that was taken from a traffic information service called traffic.com. You can go to traffic.com 24 hours a day and get this type of traffic flow information. The area that you see in red begins right after the end of the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge on the Nevada side and goes up to the turnoff on Lakeshore Drive down into the lake. And then the area in yellow that goes from Lakeshore Drive all the way up to Boulder City, and then you see green as you come out of Boulder City. That will, of course, vary dramatically by time of day, but you can get real-time traffic information about the travel flows through that corridor. And just on this particular screenshot, it came up on the automated service as a travel problem. We'll show you the congestion. You can see in the description there that the slow traffic from Veterans Memorial Drive just outside of Boulder City to Hoover Dam, it's congested. And so that's a good service to check. And our maps on our website actually get this type of information from traffic.com, and so that information is available to our local residents if they go on rtcsnv.com as well. Ultimately, we have been working in good faith with the Nevada Department of Transportation actually for several years on this problem. And NDOT has provided the leadership and the resources necessary to do an environmental impact statement to deal with this problem. We've all known that the bridge was going to create some problems in Boulder City, and the state has spent several $1 million in studies and in planning and several $1 million in travel improvements, and the RTC has also expended some money in Boulder City to help get ready for this problem. But ultimately, and I think we all agree, that the ultimate solution that needs to be implemented to achieve a resolution for this problem is to build a bypass around Boulder City that's essentially a limited access freeway type bypass. And the correct name for this type of facility, as we'll see in the next slide, is Interstate 11. You can see this map This is the map on the line on the red is a proposed route for Interstate 11, and it turns into a purple there as you get close to Phoenix. Interstate 11 would connect to Interstate 8, Interstate 10, and Interstate 40 just in the state of Arizona. It's not just a road around Boulder City. This is providing connection from Las Vegas to the rest of the country. And that Interstate 11 route, as you can see, it goes east of Phoenix, or excuse me, west of Phoenix, and it goes up to Wickenburg, and there essentially follows largely the route of U.S. Highway 95 up through Arizona to the bypass bridge. And I have to be careful in the nomenclature here. If Congress is going to designate an interstate, we need to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and we would need to make sure that if there was a designation for this, that it was done at the right time for both the Arizona Department of Transportation and especially for our partners at the Nevada Department of Transportation, because there are control of access issues that need to be resolved as this goes forward. Fortunately, I believe in my discussions with Director Martinovich that if we were to have a designation, our argument would be in Nevada at least, that the first section from the Hoover Dam bypass to where it intersects with Interstate 515 just at the edge of Henderson and outside of Boulder City, I believe we're in good shape to have that be the first area to be designated, and we would want to make sure that we do this in an incremental fashion. But beyond this corridor here, just the importance of the connection to Phoenix and Las Vegas, the plan for Interstate 11 is greater than just Phoenix to Las Vegas. Following the route of US 95 as it goes up through northern Nevada and through Oregon, and then ultimately for a connection all the way through to the state of Washington in Seattle. This is really a connection for Las Vegas, and not just Las Vegas, but Nevada to the rest of the country. There are some significant economic impacts associated with the lack of reliability on this important travel corridor. And we will be studying those economic impacts, and they do have the reality is that this is an impact to our economy. There are some safety issues and concerns as well. We know that the state is aware of those and is working hard on some solutions, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And I don't know if Mayor Tobler wants to say anything at this point, but Tony Lorenzi is here. He's a senior project manager from the Nevada Department of Transportation. I think he's been working for the last 48 hours straight on a presentation that he has that he'd like to make to the Commission to outline some of those short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions. But at this point, I'd like to turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, or Mayor Tobler, or other members of the Commission if they have anything they'd like to say before Tony makes this presentation.
Tony, if you could begin your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Jacob. Tony Lorenzi with the Nevada Department of Transportation. I was assigned to the Boulder City Bypass Project last January, and over the last year, this project has been accelerated to a high priority project. We have people working full-time on this, and there's also a series of safety improvements, interim safety improvements that we've been doing for Boulder City in that time. We've been closely coordinating with Boulder City over some miscellaneous improvements. They ask us to do several things. We evaluate them. We do everything we can. Some of them need to be further evaluated and done at a later time. And we'll get into everything we've been doing over the last year. But I was contacted in December by Scott Hansen, the Director of Public Works, informing us of the severe backups and the congestion. And so we immediately started meeting internally to discuss what we can do, try and get our arms around the situation, and like Jacob had said, work on short-term, mid-term, and long-term solutions. So today we'll look at the Hoover Dam bypass completion date, a brief overview of the safety improvements in US 93, identify the congestion. Really the significant change to this corridor is the opening of the Hoover Dam bypass, and the Hoover Dam and the hairpin turns around there used to control the volume of vehicles through there. Now that it's a free-flowing corridor, it's moved the congestion towards Boulder City. We'll look at the short-term immediate solutions, mid-term, long-term, and any questions that you may have. The Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge was completed and opened October of 2010. Some of the safety improvements that we've done, 2008, we did a series of 3 high T intersections, included lighting, signage, restriping, etc. 2010, the week before, the few weeks leading to the opening of the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge, we did some improvements to the Buchanan intersection. We've lengthened a dual left turn pocket going southbound, and we also had the free right turn coming from Hoover Dam going towards Las Vegas, open that lane up so traffic does no longer has to stop and merge. So that intersection improvements, it is intention of that is to move traffic more effectively through there, and trucks in particular. And we are still working on some crosswalks with Refuge Island at the Boulder City's request, and also another high T intersection Boulder City has requested at Lakeview. So those are the things that we're still working on. As you saw before in some of the pictures on December 27th, this is the southbound. As you leave the Buchanan intersection, this is heading down into the Hemingway Wash area. Northbound, just as you cross the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge, and the shot that you saw earlier on northbound. So short-term immediate solutions, what we can do within the next several months, we have several things that we're working on. One of the things that we've noticed is there's some inadequate signage down at exit number 2, the interchange that everybody has to use to get to and from the Hoover Dam and the visitor center. We're working that this week the signs should be in place that adds verbiage to Hoover Dam / visitor center, also informing traffic US 93 Phoenix straight ahead. I went out there and saw that cars are getting confused. I think they're stopping, they're pulling over, they're hitting their brakes, and that's a chain reaction that's also contributing to the congestion. But better signage, we think, will help be a part of the solution. We're looking at adding a southbound auxiliary lane and improving the southbound off-ramp. We've had reports of cars backing up from the southbound off-ramp onto Main Line, and there's not enough room for cars if they're stacking in that off-ramp. In those rare occurrences, it's not something that's happening every day, but if it happens just once, it's going to impede trucks from moving through there, and it's just going to create a bad situation down there. So we're looking at widening the off-ramp and providing 2 lanes through that interchange to tie into the new approach over the Hoover Dam Bypass Bridge. The southbound auxiliary lane, we're working on extending that off-ramp back about 800 feet to the hacienda, and I'll show you a picture in a second of that. And we are going to carry that auxiliary lane as far as we can without getting out of a categorical exclusion environmental clearance. Once we exceed that and get into a NEPA or an EIS, then that just takes a long time. That's a process, and we want to do everything we can right now, push the envelope as far as we can and get as much as we can done without triggering a NEPA decision. ITS improvements, Jacob showed you the overhead sign that's informing traffic, suggesting they use the alternate route on 95. What we're doing now is we're going to deploy ITS improvements all the way down through the Hemingway Valley or Wash area, and have flow detectors and have a placement of a DMS sign before the 93-95 junction that gives drivers the opportunity to use 95. They'll see how long it takes to get to Phoenix each route. We're working on a truck climbing lane, and we're also looking into public transit to and from Hoover Dam visitor centers. So this is a slide of the interchange now, exit number 2, and you'll see on the right-hand side there's a piece of the sign there. That's one of the signs that will be changed, improved. This picture was taken the day of the opening of the bridge, and you can see there it's a narrow entrance into that corridor. Here's an overshot of the interchange there. So it shows exit 2 off ramp. And also I'd like to mention that people visiting the Hoover Dam Visitor Center and the bridge coming from Nevada have to use this interchange, as well as people from Arizona. Arizona's decommissioned their checkpoint, and so we're introducing visitors from Arizona as well at this interchange. So by improving the ramp and providing auxiliary lane, we provide a safer exit for cars. Here's another picture of the southbound off-ramp there at exit 2. This will be two through lanes onto the bridge approaches, as well as an improved off-ramp. And also at the bottom of that off-ramp, there's a stop condition. We're looking at taking away the stop condition to allow a free flow traffic to the visitor center. Here's an overview of, you can see the Hacienda Hotel and Casino. That's the limit that we will extend the off-ramp back to there and carry the auxiliary lane in the southbound direction as far back as we can. The goal is to have 2 through lanes in the southbound direction from Lakeshore Drive all the way through the bridge. We're just going to go as far as we can. ITS improvements that I mentioned, we'll put the signs at strategic locations, flow detectors that allow to get accurate trip times, and we'll place those signs in locations where people can choose if they want to continue on 93 or go down 95. There's multiple cameras that are operated by RTC's FAST that are supposed to be online within days, and we'll have access to those cameras, and the public can also log on and look at those cameras as well. Been working with Brian Hoft in the FAST department on that. Like I said, it'll give vehicles the ability to decide the best route for them. And also with the ITS improvements, we can direct traffic to utilize the auxiliary lanes in high volume events. A truck climbing lane, we are also working on this. Some of those pictures you saw from December 27th showed severe backups in the north direction. This truck climbing lane will start at the approach to the bridge on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll go 2.5 miles in the northbound direction past the Hacienda and about 1,500 feet past Lakeshore. And it'll still provide an acceleration lane from Lakeshore for the trucks and boats being towed. And so the goal, like I said, is to have 2 lanes in each direction, all from Lakeshore down through the bridge, which will open up. There's about a 4.5 mile bottleneck right now in the southbound direction of single lane, and this will to Lakeshore is about half that distance, so it'll double the capacity of that southern portion. Also, it mentioned public transit with Arizona visitors coming to the bridge to see the bridge and the dam and the visitor center. We're looking at park and ride locations, one down by the visitor center, and another one we also have been talking about finding a location in Boulder City for people to park there and be shuttled down to the bridge, which will help have less traffic going down there, and also an opportunity for revenue for Boulder City and for Nevada. Midterm solutions, I mentioned another high T intersection at Lakeview that will provide safer on and off onto the US 93 corridor. We're working with Boulder City on a location for frontage roads. We can and look to provide local access so people don't have to get onto US 93 and deal with the congestion and add to the congestion. And as I mentioned before, that southbound auxiliary lane extended as far as we can. But when we get into the midterm and long-term solutions, then we introduce more environmental clearances. Lakeshore Drive, we've been working with the Park Service on installing a high T intersection there. And here is a shot of what a high T intersection looks like. You can see there's protected left turn in to the side street and a left turn out onto the corridor. This was one from Lake Mountain Drive that we did in 2008. Long-term solutions. Phase 2 of the Boulder City bypass is really the solution to this, and there was several alternatives looked at and evaluated, and the shot that we looked at earlier, the bypass sweeping down below Boulder City, was the chosen alternative. We looked at social impacts, economic, environmental impacts. But long-term solutions, again, we can reevaluate the EIS from the Boulder City bypass. We've also been looking at the idea of doing some grade-separated interchanges between Pacifica and Buchanan with a series of frontage roads. And I think also that an updated cost-benefit analysis needs to be done to incorporate the Hoover Dam bypass. The last one that was done did not include that. So here's a picture of an exhibit from the environmental impact statement from Boulder City bypass. So alternative D, alignment D, was the one that sweeps down below Boulder City. They also looked at improving the existing corridor, but the alternative D was chosen for the reasons I just mentioned, and safety is a big one. So also in the Boulder City bypass EIS, they have identified some deficiencies, and the ones that are highlighted in red are the ones that we've been talking about today from Buchanan down to the Hoover Dam bypass. So in summary, we are evaluating and analyzing the corridor. We're determining what can be done immediately. I know that Mayor Tobler, have discussions with him. We were looking at immediate solutions to try and relieve this as quickly as possible. So there's several pieces, I think, to this puzzle that can be done, and all done together. I think they're going to have a big difference. So none of them alone are going to solve the problem, but these are things that can be done immediately, and we'll monitor those after they're done, come up with midterm solutions, 1 to 5 year time frame, and evaluate and implement long-term solutions.
Thank you, Tony. Mayor Tobler?
Yeah, I'll just, I do have a couple questions, but I'm going to reference some other things first. Sure. I want to thank the RTC, and especially Jacob and Allison, I'm not sure there she is, for getting involved and really providing some leadership for the press conference. And I know the day that I called Jacob wasn't, I believe was your holiday, and I was upset. And this has been going on, and a couple points that I want to make is, first of all, this isn't just a holiday problem for Boulder City. Since the bridge is opened, we have dealt with backups and delays every weekend. Every weekend, whether it backs up to Henderson or Railroad Pass, it doesn't matter. It shuts our city down. And that's the problem. It goes through the heart of our city. We have no mobility within our city. I'm not concerned just about the businesses, which I am one of them. I'm concerned about our residents. Since the bridge is open, our major accidents have all been involved with tractor trailers. Yesterday, one involved a tanker, a gas tanker. Fortunately, it wasn't a serious accident, but let's not kid ourselves. We're just going to escalate this to where there's going to be some serious problems with the truck traffic. Coming out of Boulder City this morning, I followed 6 semi-trucks, 6. And I'll tell you what, if you look at our intersection, this is what we've been asking of NDOT. I understand that you have traffic models and everything else, but come to our town, sit at our intersection, and see what's happening. They run our red light. There is no concern with these trucks that if it's turning yellow or anything else, they will block our intersection. All the improvements we made at our intersection has come at the expense of the community. We back up now all of our roads going out of town because we're trying to accommodate the increased truck traffic. And that's the problem that we have in Boulder City. We simply, the volume's too high. The improvements we made can't handle the new traffic volumes. You know, one of the things that we've always said that when this bridge opened, the problem would move into Boulder City. We never had real sure statistical data to show that, and I know that's been one of the problems, and I know NDOT has been working on this. But we've always made this point. It's very simple. If you look at the map of the improvements that are made from the bridge on the Arizona side and even out to 515, the only section that hasn't addressed the volume increase is through Boulder City. And Tony, I appreciate what you're doing, but none of your short-term suggestions here alleviate the real problem for Boulder City. We're condensing 2 lanes down to 1. We all know that's the problem. You're showing a midterm solution, which is 2 to 3 years out. What is Boulder City supposed to do during this time? And that's my concern for our community. It's unacceptable to have to deal with the problems that we're dealing with. Just a couple of other points that I did make, but I want to make again. This isn't just a holiday problem. This is a weekend problem for us. And even during the day, there have been times where it's backed up. I think for Boulder City to be able to survive this in the short term, we have to be realistic. And removing the tractor trailers is a step that we have to take. I don't think that's a step we need to say is a permanent solution. We know that's not the case. The bridge has been put in. A lot of that's for the commercial trade traffic. But right now, it can't handle the volume. And it's creating serious safety issues for Boulder City, not just time delays for everybody. The other issue is we received a report last meeting from Tom Stanky about what's going to happen with this truck traffic coming up through 93. And that's why I'm glad to see that Interstate 11, let's forget the Boulder bypass, let's call it the Interstate 11. I think that's a great idea. I appreciate the RTC taking the lead on what the economic impacts are. It's just not a Boulder City problem. But because it's such a serious problem in Boulder City, we still ought to be looking at this as an unacceptable traffic problem that we have. And once again, the short-term solutions may help a little bit. But I don't have anything to go back to my community and say, look, this is what we're going to do to really improve the situation, except the tractor trailer, removing them from at least until we build the southbound lane down Hemingway. I know that showed up in your midterm solution. That's one that we ought to be looking at doing right away. When we look at the improvements that were made through Boulder City right now, I want to point out another thing. Boulder City hasn't just been sitting around waiting for this to happen to them. We found the money for all those improvements. Through John Porter and Harry Reid, we went back through those earmarks and made sure that we could use them on 93. So all the money that's been spent in Boulder City has come through those earmarks that we helped, procure for these projects. So we have tried to be proactive in what we're doing. We've worked with NDOT all these years. You guys have provided us a lot of help, but I think realistically now we need to say, look, the volume, we just can't handle it coming through our intersection. And that's the problem right now. It's just too much volume.
I think you'll see when we implement these changes, there's 5 or 6 short-term solutions. All of those put together will help with the volume. It will double the capacity of the southern portion of the Hemingway Wash segment. It'll provide 2 through lanes through the interchange. That interchange, in my opinion, was under design. They didn't look forward.
What interchange are you referring to?
The interchange to exit down to go to the visitor center and the dam, okay, where those pictures I showed.
And I agree with that, but that's, once again, you're taking the problem down below and not recognizing our intersection at Buchanan, taking 2 lanes to 1, and the constriction that's happening there. I mean, those other things will help, but that's where the real problem's coming from.
Right, and again, we're going to extend that auxiliary lane as far back as we can and within the realm of a CAD-X. Anything longer, anything that triggers a NEPA decision will take longer through the Federal Highway Administration, and I know you don't want to wait that long, so we're doing what we can now, and I am very confident that these changes are going to improve the capacity. You open up the throat down there at the interchange, you will see a difference with the traffic moving through it. Buchanan's is flowing better now, but I understand it goes from 2 lanes down to 1. For about 4.5 miles, there's a single lane. We're confident we can get about half of that done with a CAD-X, but we're meeting with the FHWA and we're finding how far we can go with that. If we can bring the auxiliary lane all the way to where it drops from 2 lanes to 1, that's terrific. We're going to do everything we can to see that we can.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject an observation and a recommendation to the Commission. One of the things in our research that we have discovered is an opportunity to intervene in the short term is to petition the Federal Highway Administration to declare an emergency situation, albeit a temporary emergency situation, until some of these short-term improvements can be implemented, and to petition them to redirect the truck traffic away from the 93 corridor and have it go back to where it has been for the last 9 years or so, ever since September 11th, 2001, and use the Bullhead City of Laughlin and Searchlight corridor and use 95. Now, they do have that from our research. That is at their discretion, and we are in the process of gathering the data to support such a petition to the Federal Highway Administration. We're working with a local economist. We're gathering statistics from the emergency services out in Boulder City about the increases in the incidents and accidents that they've had to respond to. And we'll be collecting all that and sharing that not only with the Federal Highway Administration, but our congressional delegation. You can, if you'd like to today, you can direct us to continue with that effort, but we are preparing to make just such an effort.
And Mr. Snow, on that point, is the RTC that would be the sole petitioner, or would that be in conjunction with NDOT?
At this point, it's the RTC that would be the sole petitioner. I can't speak for NDOT on that.
But that's what I was going to say, Jacob, thank you, is that we received a copy of the letter that was sent to Senator Reed because Boulder City had requested that we ask to remove trucks. They aren't allowed because it's been established as a national corridor on the national highway system, and it had been established as a truck route through many of the past transportation bills. But the response that Senator Reed received back from Victor Mendez, who's the administrator for Federal Highways, said that if we submit a request to Federal Highways responding to each point, covering just what Jacob had identified, and they are pretty cumbersome, unfortunately, but that's what we intend to do. And so we were going to work with you all, and if we go in united that this is something we're seeking, that I think it provides a stronger point. So we'll be working with the RTC on that as well.
I'm very grateful to hear that, because up till now, Susan, Boulder City has not received that action from NDOT that you would be working with us to remove the trucks.
Well, in reality, we never received a copy of this memo either. It was sent directly to the senator, and then the senator's office had sent it to me. I hadn't received it back from Federal Highways as well.
NDOT's got a lot of clout, so if they can help us on this,
We
it would be
appreciate that.
very much appreciated.
One final question. What's the resource picture as far as funding for these immediate, short-term, and certainly long-term?
That has been the challenge. You know, just being up front, is that we have a lot of issues across the valley. The Boulder City and Mayor is absolutely right. They've made some great pushes and initiatives in getting earmarks, and we've been using that money. For the short term, and a lot of the others, the state has been stepping forward using a lot of state funds too to take care of the resources, and we understand and appreciate the project's problem, so we will continue to do that and use the state resources on the state system. And if there's some challenge that we have in that, then we'll definitely work with Jacob to identify them. So that's for the signage and the items, and then the widening as well. Anything bigger, it's just not there.
And we do have, there's about $4.8 million left in that earmark, the discretionary funds that Boulder City has procured. So I've talked with Mayor Tobler and to address the southbound congestion issues. We'll work with Boulder City to see if we can utilize some of that funding for the southbound improvements.
Right. Not the truck lane, but the southbound.
Right,
Yes.
so that's why it's southbound. That's what I said.
Well, it's a great time to get public work projects on the street as far as a cost benefit. Legislatively, are we coordinating with the mayor in Boulder City, NDOT, and the RTC as far as any potential legislation that could assist?
Well, the mayor has me on speed dial, and we certainly will be happy to do that. There may even need to be some legislation passed at the national level to accomplish some of the things that we want to do. And so we're, spoken with the RTC's lobbyist in Washington, D.C., Marcus Faust, about this. He's actually engaged in this. I'm going back next week and hope to be having a few meetings on this myself to try to get some of the balls rolling on this, and we'll need to have more follow-up as we go throughout this year.
Commissioner June Kiliani?
Thank you. When we talk about the truck traffic, we have doubles and triples as well, I'm assuming, on the roadways, correct? And I thought legislatively someone was going to look last session at not allowing triples on state and county roads. And I don't know, Susan, do you recall anything on that?
I don't know. I think we're one of the few states actually that do allow triples.
Exactly.
And I don't recall any that came forward at last legislation.
I'm thinking, I do know that I've spoken with some Teamsters last year that would be interested in working with the state and county if we wanted to look at pursuing that potential legislation, and that might be something we might want to add to that. It's not just for, I mean, it might be a longer term, but it really is something that tears up our roads. It backs up congestion throughout the entire valley, and maybe it's a ripe opportunity to form that kind of a partnership if that's the case. I haven't spoken to anybody in a year, but I found it on my notes to myself just the other day. So that might be something we might want to take into consideration, because I thought we were unique in allowing the triples. It's a safety factor as well as a congestion, and it eats up our roadways even more. So.
Well, we did have a meeting yesterday with the Federal Highway Administration, and they did inform us that triples are not allowed across the bridge.
Oh.
There's no enforcement.
But there's
So
no.
enforcement's a different, yeah, we need to address that, but.
Mayor Goodman?
Yes, thank you.
And then Councilman Ross?
I was briefed on this yesterday by Mr. Snow, and my heart went out to Mayor Tobler, because he's in a position where he really has to have help and isn't able to do it by himself. It's a situation which is almost out of his hands. He's the voice to alarm us, and we should be alarmed. And the thing that always disturbs me, and we said it last meeting too, is sometimes we don't realize that time is of the essence. And I said to him this morning, I said, Roger, the business owners have to be getting killed there. And he said, yeah, I'm one of them, and my business is off 20%. And his constituents can't get in and out of their homes, and that causes unrest. I know the members of this board want to support him. And Jacob, if it's necessary to get us into the picture as far as whatever political capital we have, I think we should expend it in order to support Mayor Tobler and the issues in Boulder City. Now, that's the immediate issue. When we had our last meeting and Mr. Skanke made his presentation, I think all of us felt that the future of Southern Nevada really is dependent, our economic success is dependent on US 11. I think that was a consensus here. And that's not, I hate studies, I hate commissions, I hate meetings, because nothing ever happens between one meeting and the next meeting. But I think that we really have to meet as a body, and you are a great spokesman and a great leader, but I think we have to meet with our congressional delegation and tell him that the future of this community, we're talking about diversification, we're talking about economic success, really relies on US 11. If we don't get US 11, and I'm not talking about 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we're missing the boat. We're missing the boat. And don't worry about spending money. They always find money to spend. I'm not one of these guys who thinks that if somebody wants to get something done back in Washington, they could get it done. And I really believe that we have to let them know, and let them know personally and look them in the eye, that if we don't do this, I think that the whole economy here has the potential of just being left behind, and the rest of the country taking advantage of our inaction. So I offer all of us, and I think to a person, to support this kind of active resolution, and not the passive way that government usually does business.
Councilman Ross?
Thank you, Mayor.
And I would say sooner than later, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that we do that, because we need to send a clear message. And it's the economics, and Jacob, I appreciate the fact of perhaps petitioning the Federal Highway Administration for some kind of emergency, whether it's safety or otherwise. But this is the economic viability of the future of southern Nevada, northern Nevada, all the way up the west coast, if you will, from Mexico. And this is important. This is important to us. So I'm going to side with the mayor on that. Commissioner, I just want to point out to you, I think there was prospective legislation last session, but the trucking industry got a hold of that before it got any momentum, if you recall, from last session. And they're a big lobbyist, and that's important. But Mayor Tobler, there could be a revenue draw there if you got triples aren't allowed over the bridge. How many officers you got out there?
Not enough.
Councilwoman?
Yes, and as Boulder City's neighbor directly to the north, we're impacted because of the backup that hits our community. But first and foremost, as Commissioner Ross said as well, that this impacts our whole community as a region. You know, the transportation system really is the network, the foundation of our community, and all growth and development comes off of the transportation grid. And clearly, with what's going to be happening with 11, and we should all be championing what's going to be happening with 11, connecting two major urban centers. In fact, I believe that Phoenix and Las Vegas are the only major urban population centers of 1 million or more that don't have an interstate connecting them. This should be Washington's priority. It certainly is our priority, and I think our future growth and economic development depends on getting this roadway system built, and the first piece should be the piece in Boulder City.
Commissioner? And then back to Councilman Ross.
Just wanted to follow up. So it's not allowed, they're not allowed on the bridge, but then are they still allowed throughout the rest of the city?
I need to confirm that.
Okay. And again, though, I don't think we should lose sight of that. And as you said, who enforces that? I don't know. Who does enforce that?
Well, one thing that, another project we've been asked to take on from Boulder City is a truck inspection pullout. We've been told that Boulder City has acquired the equipment and have the manpower to man a booth.
A booth?
Yes, we just have to work with Boulder City on the location and preparing the
And I think the
site.
state's going to look again at toll roads, or not toll roads, I'm sorry,
Truck inspections.
yeah, truck inspections on the old borders that used to, they're just still sitting there, they just haven't been staffed. Thank you, Port of Entries. And that may assist, we have to look at this global. I mean, the impact on Boulder City is horrendous, and we need to recognize that and do whatever we can, but we should look fixing some of this globally. So you'll take a look at, and then park and rides, Jacob, is Boulder then going to see if they can find something to at least do like you did on the day when we did the opening, where we had shuttling people back and forth?
We'd like to explore that opportunity in conjunction with not just the city of Boulder City, but also we'll need to work with the Bureau of Reclamation and Lake Mead National Recreation Area. I can tell you that my friend that's the Bill Dickinson with the Lake Mead National Recreation Area has been lobbying me for transit service down to the lake for about a decade now. There may be an opportunity to do something that would be similar to what is done in some of the national parks in this country, which is to connect them via transit. And that way you can eliminate a lot of congestion. We'll just need to identify a way that makes it financially viable to do so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then I think whatever mix we do, that we should make sure that that's part of the motion, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And could we look at using the electronic signage, saying something like triples not allowed, strictly enforced, and so that at Railroad Pass where there's that electronic signage, maybe make a warning and direct them in the other direction?
That is something that we can do periodically, and with the expansion of the intelligent transportation system devices and with NDOT's help and support, we certainly can reinforce that message, because they've got a great plan, I think, to expand the number of signs out there as well as the number of cameras.
Councilman Ross and then Mayor Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jacob, for the benefit of this commission and for the benefit of the public, you are communicating with Arizona's public officials in regards to the importance of Interstate 11. As the mayor's indicated, you know, maybe all of us need to make a trip to D.C. to talk to our delegation or catch them here at home, but please fill us in on that relationship with Nevada and Arizona, if you would, please.
We have a very good relationship with the Maricopa Association of Governments. They are essentially the equivalent body of the Regional Transportation Commission in metropolitan Phoenix. And we've been working on this. Dennis Smith is my counterpart at the Maricopa Association of Governments for a number of years now. we're working on high-speed rail together, we're working on Interstate 11 together, and we have had a lot of work with our counterparts in Arizona, both regionally and at the state level, with regard to the work that we've done on getting a new bridge across the Colorado River down in the Laughlin area. So we are making those connections and trying to strengthen those relationships.
And I ask you that directly, if I may again, Mr. Chairman. We talk about the economics of Las Vegas and Southern Nevada, everything we're doing to help Nevada. Interstate 11, certainly Boulder City, is also going to economically affect Phoenix and the surrounding areas and towns and cities around Phoenix. So we've got to do this together. As Nevada goes, Arizona goes, and we need to make sure that that plan overlays, and we take it to D.C. and we get the federal dollars, and we give our Department of Transportation in Arizona as much ammo as they need.
And Councilman, I've been in contact and working with the Department of Transportation, my counterpart, John Halakowski, with Arizona on the importance of this. So we've already started the discussions nationally with others to provide for this.
I believe Victor Mendez, the Federal Highway Administrator, is a former Arizona DOT official himself.
He
Is that not
was,
correct?
and I've got meetings planned with him, so every time I bring that up as one of our topics as well as others, yes.
NDOT's got a lot of clouds.
Mayor Goodman, and then we'll have Mayor Tobler
Thank
wrap
you.
this up.
Mayor Tobler, I'm very empathetic towards your position. You're a lucky fellow, though, because you have a police department out there, and you're in charge of that police department. If I were you, and one of these trucks that you told us about is stopped in the middle of an intersection, it's in my police department out there if I had one, I'd arrest the driver, I'd throw him in the can, and I'd tow his truck, and I guarantee you that the word will go out and your intersections will be clear from that point on.
The real solution.
Well, I want to thank the board for your support, and maybe you need, when you retire, come out and maybe apply for our sheriff position out there in Boulder City.
I'll tell you.
Not that I like our current sheriff, but maybe your enforcement would be a little stricter than what we are currently applying out there. But I appreciate the support. You know, Boulder, we are trying to do everything on our end. We have lobbyists in Washington, D.C., working with, and I personally have been working with Senator Reed. I think he would be very, I don't know, energized with removing the trucks, knowing that the RTC board and NDOT will be working together to make that application. I think would give him that extra help to kind of lobby that himself. So we are trying to do everything we can, and we appreciate all the help. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Mr. Snow?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. We will have items that we will need to bring back to you, and we will do that at our, I'm sure we'll have another item on this at our next meeting. With that, we now go to our consent agenda, which is made up of items 3 through 23, which may be taken in one motion.
Motion on the floor on the consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Marco Rizzo. I'd like to request item number 21 be removed from the consent agenda, placed on the non-consent agenda. I believe the proposed awardee is not the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. I'd like to discuss that if I can.
Okay.
Fine.
We'll amend that motion.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion on the floor amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
He's saying it's not the lowest.
That motion carries. And your name again?
Marco Rizzo?
And is this, have you contacted staff or any of the commission members on this item?
I have contacted staff. That's actually part of the issue is the bidding process is.
Okay, as long as we're aware of some of the issues involved, I
Yep.
just, we'll take that as our next item, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, that would be your next item, which is item 21, is to approve the award of bid number 11078 camera system for paratransit vehicles to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, C&E Mobile Installs, in the amount not to exceed $464,000, and authorize the staff to issue a purchase order. Now, we have funds in the budget for this, and we issued an invitation for bids for this camera system in November 16th of last year. We got 6 bids. And we closed the bids on December 14th, and upon opening the bids, Apollo Video Technology submitted a no-bid response, and the remaining 5 bid responses were evaluated. After that evaluation, the low bid did not conform to the specifications of the bid, therefore that bid was found to be non-responsive. And we have in your backup a ranking of the bids that were attached, and we recommend award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder C&E Mobile Installs in the amount that's been quoted to you previously. Now, staff is available to answer your questions, and I was not aware that this was an issue, and I apologize to the Commission. I did not know that this issue was going to come forward.
Okay. Please.
Okay, thank you. The reason I bring this up, and I've spoken with the RTC contracting officer, and the issue is, excuse me, I'm not able to see any of the paperwork that's been submitted until after the bid has been recommended to you. However, NRS code requires that in determining the responsibility of the bidder, the governing body or its authorized representative shall consider the possession of and limit of any required license of the bidder, may consider other items. I've looked at the list of the bidders. My company was one of the bidders, and I believe I'm the only bidder that has a Clark County and City of Las Vegas license. I know business license issues are important. Work very hard to have that, and I don't believe any of the other bidders have that. I have more if we want to get into the specifics.
Are you representing one of the companies?
Yes, sir.
And that company is?
My company is Advanced Concepts and Designs.
Okay. So, and I'll let you go on after talking to our legal counsel, but the crux of your argument is that you're the only firm that has the appropriate licensing?
Correct.
Zev, to you or Jacob, to staff, the discrepancy from the low bid to the gentleman's company is significant. But do we feel comfortable that on this public record we're able to respond and move forward? Is there a timing, a sensitivity issue, or could this be better addressed at our next meeting? I'll leave that up to Mr. Kaplan and Mr. Snow.
Like Jacob, I was unaware there was an issue here. So if it's not urgent, I'd rather have the extra time so we can review the whole.
Mr. Chairman, I can recommend to the Commission that this is not a critical emergency issue, and if you'd like us to bring this back to you at your next meeting, we certainly can do that.
And do you want to speak? If you do, you have to come up to the mic.
Sharon Hout is in charge of our purchasing.
She has her
and she can give us
RTC book
some-
in her hand.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Sharon Hout, and I am the purchasing manager here at the RTC. I was not aware that this was a problem. We did not receive a protest, so the protest procedure that is listed in the bid document was not followed. As far as the business license, that is something that we look at during our bid evaluation. And I do know that the CE Mobile Installs has been an awarded contractee before for similar items. I don't know if it's the exact item, but similar items. So I would need to check that and verify a business license, but that is something that we usually do in our bid evaluation.
There's, Mr. Kaplan, back to you. Is there a formal process? It's been indicated that the bid process to file a protest has not been followed. Would that be grounds to not even hear it, or what's your comfort level?
Yeah, I mean, legally, if you wanted to choose to go ahead, you could if the proper bid protest procedure was not followed. But as indicated, this doesn't seem to be an urgent matter. We can certainly evaluate it and bring it back next board meeting. Right. Which I think would probably be the more prudent approach.
Very good. Commissioner Giunciliani?
Thank you. We've run into this in the county, as Commissioner knows, that we weren't doing a good job of always checking business licenses or looking at least who might be local. Not always should you award based on that, but best effort in the long run. And so that ought to be something just part of our policy to make sure that that's part of what's documented. But could you maybe at the later date, outline for us what our protest timelines are, and are they consistently within our RFP? Are they the same thing over and over again, so that as we do workshops and that type of thing with businesses that want to participate in bidding, they at least know what they're supposed to do? Because we've had some of our own problems in
We
the
can
county.
we can certainly provide that to you. I mean, it's standard language in almost all our procurements.
Then I would ask the gentleman to contact Mr. Snow and Mr. Kaplan as soon as possible, and I will make a motion to hold this in abeyance till our next meeting. Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. We now go to the Administration and Finance portion of your agenda, and Dr. Fred O'Haney has item number 24.
Item 24 is to approve an owner contract agreement number 10-120B with Aggregate Industries for Phase 2 construction services for the construction manager at risk Sahara Avenue Bus Rapid Transit Project in the guaranteed maximum price of $34,975,000, and authorize the chairman to sign. Mr. Chairman, last year the RTC received $34.4 million from the federal government as part of the stimulus funds for the Sahara BRT project. In November, the RTC board approved a construction manager at risk contract for pre-construction services with Aggregate Industries, formerly called Frena Construction. Staff and the contractor have negotiated Phase 2 construction services agreement for a guaranteed maximum price of $34.9 million. The design for the project is complete. All that we're left with right now are permits from our project partner, NDOT. Mr. David Swallow, our Director of Engineering, is here to give a brief overview of the project.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, if you recall, last year we received this award of the Tiger funding. This is federal funding, Tiger standing for Transportation Investment Generating Economic Recovery. We came forward with an item as soon as we received notice last February that we got the award. We came back in March and immediately initiated design. Since that time, we've been working expeditiously with our partner Lewis Berger Group, who is the design consultant, along with Aggregate Industries, formerly known as Frena Construction. They came on board in August as our construction manager at risk. They've been acting as essentially a consultant during the finalization of the design process, providing constructability reviews, cost estimates, really giving us a lot of important feedback so that we resolve all the issues that are normally encountered during construction actually in the design phase, so that when we kick them loose to go to construction, they can go forward as quickly as possible. This is the project corridor. It's a 12-mile segment of Sahara Avenue that runs generally between Wallapai and Boulder Highway. Through this implementation of this project, I think our transit planning staff hopes to realize some operating efficiencies that will allow us to extend this higher grade transit service into the eastern part of the valley with a couple branch lines that go up Nellis to Lake Mead and Hollywood area, as well as down Lamb and Vegas Valley. If you look here on the map, you'll see a number of improvements that are shown. Most importantly, of course, are the dedicated transit lanes that are being implemented along the majority of the corridor. And really what we're doing is repaving or restriping the road that already has existing shoulders on it to better maximize the efficiency of the road by narrowing the general purpose lanes a little bit and squeezing in the transit lanes, thereby realizing not only an unobstructed way for our transit operations, but also, again, a de facto right turn lane for general purpose traffic. Other improvements that we've included in the project in response to requests from both the City of Las Vegas as well as Clark County are landscaping and sidewalk improvements to really improve the interconnectivity of the system with other modes. In this case, we're looking at widening the sidewalks in the area between Decatur Boulevard and Richfield Boulevard, or almost to Rancho, as well as between Paradise Road and Boulder Highway. So we're trying to go for a nominal 10-foot sidewalk area, with the first 5 feet being an amenity zone with landscaping, street trees and things like that I'll go through later on in the presentation. We're also implementing median landscaping along the length of the corridor, generally between Buffalo Drive to the west, all the way down towards Paseo del Prado, or in the area around Rancho, as well as from Paradise Road to Boulder Highway. The construction activities that will be underway on this project are typical of what you would see on a normal maintenance, where we're just milling down the top layer of asphalt so that we can repave it and restripe it with the new lane configurations. We're also doing a number of signal improvements along the corridor, upgrading all the traffic signal controllers. We're hoping to implement transit signal priority similar to what we're doing on Boulder Highway and on Las Vegas Boulevard North. This is kind of a rendering of what we hope to see as part of the ultimate project build-out. This is the area of West Sahara, just west of Valley View. You can see there the dedicated transit lane, as well as the general purpose lanes, the median landscaping, and what we call the street trees, or the trees that are located right behind the curb. We're hoping by doing this, we're creating a more pleasing pedestrian realm where people will feel comfortable walking along Sahara, that it also will complement, hopefully, redevelopment of Sahara Avenue. I know that in some areas of the alignment, there's been a drop in business, both in response to our current economic conditions and prior ones. So we're hoping this is the shot in the arm for the corridor. We're also upgrading a number of the passenger shelters, replacing them all with new solar-powered shelters that are ones that will hopefully improve the shading of our passengers. We actually show a screen a little bit towards the front, if you can see it on the rendering. We see a number of cases, bus stops throughout the valley, where people are actually standing behind the bus shelter trying to get shade. So we want to put that shade up front so they don't have to stand back in the landscape area. We're going to continue to use the double-deck vehicles that we've been operating with on Sahara Avenue. This is a very popular vehicle, especially for our commuters. It has many more seats than a normal articulated coach. It has almost 80 seats. It also has one of the best views as far as riding a bus in the valley. We're implementing ticket vending machines to help speed the boarding process at a number of our high volume locations, as well as the landscape and upgraded sidewalks. You can see here, this is a shot of Grand Central Parkway right outside. This is typically what we expect to see on Sahara Avenue. Same type of tree, the shoestring acacia. We're also upgrading pedestrian ramps to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act. As part of another project, we're doing what's called Art in Transit through a number of our facilities and transit lines. So this project is included as part of that overall effort to really enhance the image of the corridor, again, through public art. Here's a depiction of West Sahara, just west of Valley View, looking westbound. This is what it looks like today. Kind of sparse as far as if you were a pedestrian walking along the sidewalk there, not a particularly inviting area. What we're hoping to realize is something a little bit more, softening the corridor with some landscaping, providing a lot more shade with trees, as well as really beautifying the corridor. So just making it a pleasant experience for all users of the corridor, not just our transit patrons and pedestrians, but also just the normal everyday traffic. There's another shot on East Sahara over in the area of Commercial Center. This again shows what before and after. You can see again the median landscaping and the street trees. Now going forward with this agenda item, Aggregate Industries has been a key partner, as I've mentioned. They have a number of major subs. Most, if not all, are local, including Yesco, Green Tree Landscaping, Highway Technologies, Aztec Inspections and Testing, a number of local firms. So this is a great project for our local economy, especially in the construction trades. As we mentioned before, we expect to get in the area of 400 to 500 jobs that are created or maintained through the implementation of this project. We're going to start construction if this item is approved. This month we will issue NTP immediately, and we plan to have construction completed by next February as required by the federal funding. If you recall, the federal funding, when it was awarded last February, did stipulate that all construction had to be completed by February 17, 2012. We fully anticipate meeting that goal. And I think with the contractor that we've been working with so far, I feel very confident that we'll achieve that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Couple of
Councilwoman?
questions. The BRT lane, is that a dedicated and protected lane, the protected use, or can cars travel in and out of it as needed so that you're not just taking up a lane?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, general traffic can use these lanes for making right turns. I think there's a law that requires that vehicles that enter the lane make a right turn within a certain distance, a couple hundred feet. But yes, these are open to all the general purpose traffic for right turn movements.
And then when you look at the before and after slides that you have, if you look at the before, you can see the driveway turn-ins. I wonder if maybe this isn't a good lesson for all of us in terms of good planning and design going forward in new areas, that we maybe look at cross easements or shared driveways, and so we don't see this hatch work going down the road like we have here.
Commissioner?
Thanks. Let me pick up on that. I was just talking to our planning staff 2 days ago about that, how we may have policies that force us into curb cuts, and they said something about in the old, before all of us, because we're all younger, that we had something that forced the walls, and it's called zone boundary walls or something along those lines, that really, in addition to just forcing HOAs and those types of things, it actually created the curb cuts. So they're going to go back and try to see if we even still have that policy on the books, but it somehow just has become, it permeated everything. So I thought that was an interesting comment. Part of this goes into my district, which I really appreciate, and I have to say that thank you to Jacob for coming. We formed, Councilman Reese and I because the city's on one side, county's on the other, so we kind of got the businesses together, or at least long-term businesses along that corridor, because they didn't really know what was coming, and so they were thrilled with this. So they're trying to work through having the city and county look at the landscape, not only for the roadway, but just a seascape of color and jazzing that area up as you move down the corridor. So I want to thank the staff for coming and making that presentation to them. And I know Councilman Reese was very excited about this corridor coming through, because it's a needy area that we're trying to work on, trying to revitalize. So appreciate that.
Councilman Ross.
And I'll jump right on that, Commissioner June Kiliani. I think that partnership between the city and Las Vegas fits well, especially with the RTC. Those of us that have grown up here have seen this corridor change in the decades past, and I certainly have. I think this fits entirely into the city's sustainability initiative in regards to walkable neighborhoods. And this will also bring about a great deal of pride in neighborhoods that I think a lot of these areas along the Sahara corridor are lacking right now. And it fits into our transportation needs. Mr. Swally did a great job. He answered all my questions before I could ask him. 400 to 500 jobs. You're going to get this thing out on the street, and we're going to start this project this month, to say January or beginning of February.
As soon as the commissioner signs the agenda item, I'd be happy to issue.
Commissioner, where's your pen?
We're ready. We're ready. I just have the one question. We're detaching the sidewalks where we can, right? Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah, if I could, I'll show you just a little bit. This is what we call the detached sidewalk on the image that you see here, similar to what we see on Grand Central Parkway, where the first 5 feet behind the curb has landscaping and other utility appurtenances. That's the area we call the amenity zone, and behind that is a separate 5-foot sidewalk area. We're going to concrete in between, just in between the trees, so that you have a wider feeling on the sidewalk as you're walking along. But yeah, we do increase the distance between pedestrians and the traffic in the adjacent roadway.
Thank you. I forgot to ask about bikes. Where will they go? Because I just had a neighbor who tries to bike to work, and I've ridden mine on, not well, on Sahara in Maryland. Can they commingle somehow in the traffic, or have we thought about how we look through how we maneuver? And this may not be the right place to do that. It's probably safer to get them onto other corridors. But I just I hadn't even thought about that when we were looking at this design.
I don't believe that there's any prohibition on this roadway against bicycles. That may need to be reevaluated, but there are better corridors to cycle along than this one.
Okay, maybe we just food for thought down the road, talk about that. You know, you shouldn't ride a bike on a sidewalk, and it's a vehicle under state law, but nobody ever enforces nor teaches that. So there may be some things that we have to look at on that part of it as well. As we do wider street or sidewalks, maybe there's a different component we should look at. So thank you.
Jacob, I wondered, is this corridor being studied in the Complete Streets study that the RTC passed recently?
Yes, this corridor is, and it will be one of the anchor corridors as we develop a complete streets network going forward, especially for connecting north and south, other corridors that could utilize this.
Okay. Other comments? Entertain a motion? Motion on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Your next item is citizens' participation.
If there's anyone wishing to speak to the commission this morning, please step forward, put your name and address on the record.
Good morning. Bobby Bracken on behalf of RO Bus, 4120 Losey Road. Earlier in the agenda, we were approved for a contract to supply paratransit vehicles to the RTC. First of all, I'd like to thank both the RTC and the Commission for this opportunity, and even more so, acknowledge both the RTC and the Commission for your support of local business. 7 to 8 months ago, we were able to meet with Commissioner Brown and the RTC as a locally owned, based, and operated and owned company on what it would take to do business with the RTC. Since then, I'm pleased to say that the RTC has done everything that they said that they would do. They've kept us informed. You know, the staff's been great to let us know what we needed to do, where we could fit into that relationship. So during that meeting, it was brought up what a contract or what a relationship with the RTC would mean to our company. You know, we were all born and raised here. And doing business here, we employ Nevadans. We said it would be a great opportunity for us to be able to bring on more employees, support our economy, and also the community. So I'm pleased to say since then we have put on 4 new people. By the end of this month, we'll have 2 more employees that we'll put on. Over the years, we've been involved in different charities, different organizations, Boys and Girls Club, Habitat for Humanity, donated rides, buses to churches, different organizations, youth groups. And because of this, right now we had a bus that had been given to us by one of our clients. And when the bus first came in, we thought, hey, we'll refurbish it. It had basically been sitting in a field rotting away. We thought we'd refurbish it and put it in either our sales fleet and or our rental fleet. Well, one of our employees came and said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could put this thing back together and donate it to a local charity, Boys and Girls Club, someone who could utilize the bus. So since then, we've been working with vendors to donate parts, seats, other things to put this bus together. Excuse me. Our employees have been donating time, putting this thing back together. And so our goal is to find a charity or an organization that could best utilize that bus. So once again, you know, we thank you. You know, this isn't just about selling buses to the RTC. We're members of the community. Our employees are members of the community. This affords us not only an opportunity to give back to the community and the economy, but to be involved. So once again, thank you very much, and we acknowledge and appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you and good luck. And just to share with the commission, the initiative taken on Bob's behalf on his company basically came up and introduced himself to me, but more so to the staff, and said, we want to work with you. We're local. We've been here all our lives, and we can do what you're asking. How do we go about it? And obviously today is the result of some great interaction between staff and the company. So good luck to you, and thank you for the initiative, because it's small companies and local companies like you that need to make sure that we're doing our job as far as creating that local opportunity. So thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Patricia Anderson, frequent writer, and I'm also helping everyone with the RTC. I've been riding the bus for a while, and people, like I said again, I know in open bottles, beer bottles, they cups with the stores, they let the bus drivers let them on. A lot of people have been drinking beer on the bus. Charleston bus, Sahara bus, different ones. I mean, they do it and they're underneath their coats and all this nonsense. Potato chips and everything. I know the bus stops are I know you're being remodeled, the bus stops, I understand that. So a lot of cans are not, a lot of cans are not there, cans to put the trash in. But they're throwing on Sahara and Maryland Parkway, right in front of McDonald's. It is a nightmare. Because, I go by there sometime, whatever, and I'm riding the bus, and garbage is everywhere because there's no can, they just throw stuff everywhere. And also by K&M, the K&M stores up by me, Decatur, there's a can that's been there almost over a week and a half, has not been emptied. So I've been watching it, I've been putting my reports, let you know what's going on with these people. They come in with potato chips and everything. So it's like, they're not respecting the bus. The bus drivers let them on. I don't say anything because the bus driver will let them on, and they walk with the, they have they're eating. And also the main thing, the cell phones. I know everybody has a cell phone, but they screaming on the bus with these cell phones. And I wonder if we can put it on a monitor or something, whatever you can do, So I know you have, I know you have to get back to work, so I'm not going to hold you up. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me come. The senior citizens kind of pushed me down here. Oh, my name is Anthony Hodges. I'm sorry. I live 123 Sir David. They jumped on me and they said, come on down. I want to go back a second. When we first got the two-story bus, the double-decker, it was out there on the strip, right? And the city was busy, and and the point was, it's a beautiful vehicle. So I said, well, we're hurting. We have two cross east-west, north-south, and that's Lamb and Nellis. And then you got a lot of the other streets, going east and west. There are plenty of those, And so anyway, I just said, well, we need some step up the bus service on Nellis. And so they took a few of the big two-story buses and put them out there on Nellis for a while. And then after a while, they ordered 50 more, 100, whatever, And now they got them running on various places. That's good. But what I'm really trying to say is that they had an accident that killed one lady and took the legs of another. But I mentioned right here before transportation of the city or the county or whatever many years ago that these bus things are so close to the street, 3 or 4 feet away. If a car loses control of itself, you know what I'm saying? Accidents do happen. And it goes right up on the sidewalk and wipe out the people and the gadget. So what I'm trying to say, I made mention before some of these had already happened. And then right after I made mention to it, it happened 4 or 5 times more. So what I'm trying to say is that Nevada is behind when it comes down for the transportation for the ordinary people who really needs to ride the public transportation. Now you take you got your RTC, you got your new bus, you got the transit system, you got a system that goes way out in the middle of where the rich people live. So they park their Mercedes and the Cadillacs and whatever, and they get on this thing, go straight to the airport. But the ordinary people that needs to ride the public buses to get to their jobs, they lose their jobs. Some of them even get killed trying to run across the street in traffic to get to the bus. One of the most dangerous areas in this city, and I've been clocking it for about 2 years now, I get on the bus and I don't have to. See, when I say something, I witness it to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. See, people, get them, they rattle off. When I tell you something, you can take it to the bank. Okay. The corner of Maryland and Charleston, that's pitiful. All 4 of those buses, going both directions, right? One going to the airport, the other heading back downtown, and the one going east, on Charleston, and then the one heading to the west side, whatever. Those 4 buses can be right there in that intersection, listen, at the same time. I've been on one of the buses where he was going through the intersection and the other bus coming down the other street. See that bus? You listening? He go right on across the street and he stopped. The way the buses are set up in certain part of our city is one of the worst I've ever seen. I've been all over the country. It goes halfway the block, or a third of the block, so it pull over and get out of the way and whatever. And the people have to get off that bus, run 200 feet to the corner, and hope the light don't catch them. If they get across the light, they run. I've seen people run and beat and bang on the back of the bus. I've seen people tell a bus driver on the bus, hey, you got a person come. He could stop. What are you talking about? 10, 15 seconds. less than a quarter of a minute, he could pick up a couple of people. Now, what's so bad about the Maryland and Charleston, I'm trying to move fast again, okay? But this is pitiful, okay? Let's say you got older people in the electric chairs and the pushing carts and whatever. What I'm saying is, I rode the Charleston bus one day from Maryland, and you really got to do something about that, just that one line alone. I don't care what that supervisor does, they didn't talk about he had to be at a designated end at a certain time. What 3 minutes got to do with anything when it concerning picking up people? Especially some of the older seniors, you know what I'm saying? They can't drive their scooters too quick. What I'm trying to say, the bus, see the people, and pull off and leave them. Drive 4 miles down the street and stop and sit there for 3 minutes. Are you listening to me? Yeah. Sit there with nobody, just sits there. That same bus, I was on it. That same bus run off and left 8 people. You listening? 8 people. Just run off and left them. And go down the street and sit for 3 minutes. That same 3 minutes, 2 of them could have been right back there. He could leave, what I'm trying to say, he could sit right where you got your bosses meeting. You listen? And pick up the bosses for the people. Not for some guy got to be at the other end to make his supervisor happy. Listen, we need to pick up the people. People get killed running over there between these intersections through the red light, trying to catch them buses, and they still run off and leave them in the middle of the road. Whatever, I'm teasing about that part. I'm being dead serious. You got to do something. Don't be talking about you got a perfect system, because it's flawed to death. If you could put that park and ride,
Mr. Hodges, yeah, we appreciate your message, well received, but wind up your comments now.
Yeah, I wound it up. Thank you, Mr. Brown, whatever. But that's another thing about it. You got this hurry up. I'm going to cancel the meeting in a minute. I'm the last guy standing. Whatever. This is very serious, and I want y'all to park somebody at Maryland and Charleston. Now do that for Mr. Brown, since you're the chair. Park somebody there and get that straightened out. You hear me? You got all 4 buses sitting there. And one of them going east will run off and leave the people 80% of the time. That ain't funny, especially in the summer. Now I'm through. Take that to the bank. Get it done. Maryland and Charleston. Do something if you don't have a picket in the middle of the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, if I may.
Councilman Ross, and then, I'm sorry. Councilman, if you could hold off.
Ladies first.
It's our Executive Director of Easter Seals.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown, members of the Commission. My name is Brian Patchett. As Mr. Brown already said, I'm the CEO for Easter Seals, Southern Nevada. I just wanted to say thank you today for passing, as part of the consent agenda, the opportunity for us to be able to help out in Anthem with providing paratransit. Easter Seals has been involved in transportation for a lot of years nationally and basically around the country. And we've been able to work with ITN here locally for the last couple of years, and we look forward to having in that partnership to providing the service that's so desperately needed out there in Anthem. And again, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for what you do. Councilman Ross and Commissioner G.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm thinking back to Mr. Swallow's presentation of a previous agenda item and his comments about local contractors, local companies, and this gentleman stood up from RNO about being a local company. I want to express my appreciation of this board as the Regional Transportation Commission, and this board as the Regional Flood Control District, and certainly to Director Martinovich. We recently opened the Horse Drive interchange in the Northwest on US 95, and I wanted to make it clear that Mr. Swallow's comments about local companies and your local company, we are reinvesting. That project was $44 million we reinvested back into this economy. And I think that every one of our projects at this level, if we are focused on, and Commissioner June Kiliani, I know that's a priority of ours in regards to local companies. We've talked about that for many years. All of us actually have. That's significant, that we are taking that money, whether we get it from the state or the federal government, and we're putting it back into this community, keeping people working. And I just want to express my appreciation to everybody that attended that opening. It's now open, but I got lost on one of the off-ramps. And I'll work with my city staff on that. But I want to thank my city staff as well for being out there, too.
Good. Commissioner June Kiliani?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Anthony left. I live right around that corner, and I have to admit, I walk and drive that. It's Route 109. We don't have a shelter on the one side, and the other one I've called about never being clean. But I can't say that I've ever seen all 4 buses stop at one time. I do know that there's a conflict of trying to get across Charleston from Maryland or vice versa, just because of the lights catching up. But I think that's part of what you're trying to complete as you study Maryland, and all the way into that is how do we make, I mean, in fact, on the Maryland project and Sahara, you're going to move the bus shelter back a little bit so people can actually get off on one side and get across more quickly, because that was a problem. That may be something to be studied, but I know people unfortunately don't use the crosswalks and run across in the middle of the traffic. That's not your responsibility. But maybe as we study that corridor, we can just make sure that that we have it coordinated. But I don't know how all that works. But I have not ever seen all 4 buses at one time. Now, I'm not there every hour of the day, but in defense of RTC, I think they do a very good job of trying to accommodate and making sure that people cross safely. I know that that's what all of us want to have happen. It's more about how far, maybe the location of the shelters on 109 and some of the other ones, maybe. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We're not perfect, but that's why we have David. He'll make us perfect. All right. If there's no one else wishing to speak to the board, Happy New Year to everyone, and this meeting is adjourned.